first, the Michigan Wolverines, the Alabama Crimson Tide, it was everything we thought it would be and then some. And what I loved about the college football playoff this year is not that just the fact that I felt like all four teams had a legitimate shot to win the national title. Because the fact of the matter is, in years past, I can absolutely feel like, or say the last 2 years with Cincinnati at 4, TCU, how in God's name did TCU get to number 3? Neither of those teams had a shot at winning the title. This year, Michigan could win it, Bama could win it, Texas could win it, Washington could win it. Any of these teams has a shot to go on and win this whole thing. Michigan won this one as I thought they would, although I thought Alabama would cover. I thought it'd be very, very tight, and it was. But I'm hearing a little bit of chatter about, hey, did the better team win the game? Because Alabama did have a lead with 3 minutes to go. Alabama was able to convert in the red zone when they were able to get down there. In the rare occasions they got down there. Nick Saban, we know, is the greatest head coach of all time. There's no question about that. And Alabama seemed to have a little bit of momentum late in the fourth quarter. What is ironic but also true is that it's actually Michigan's flaws that showed me they were the better team. Not defensively, where they were awesome. Jalen Milroe was pressured on 4 of his first 6 dropbacks from the jump. Michigan's defensive line, I felt like this would happen, dominated Alabama's offensive line. There's no surprise there. Michigan's defensive line has dominated a lot of teams this year. Okay, so you have that component. You have Michigan's running game, which was excellent. No surprise there. 130 yards, 4 yards of carry. Blake Corum was excellent in this game. It was the fact that Michigan's special teams was nothing short of atrocious. Listen, we're not going to hold college kids to the standards we would NFL players. Obviously, we talk about the Rams having a bad special teams. We're going to hold them to a higher standard because they're professional athletes, right? But this Michigan Wolverine special teams probably could not have played worse in this game, aside from maybe a missed extra point in regulation or something like that. But guess what? They had 2 muffed punts, one of them that nearly cost them the game at the very end when Michigan got pinned back inside of their own 5-yard line when the game was tied with about under a minute to go. So you had 2 muffed punts, you had a botched extra point, you had a missed field goal, and a missed point after try. And by the way, a play too remember Alabama's punter, this is in the first half, is kicking one off, and a Michigan player comes in and crashes into him. And they didn't call a running into the kicker, that should have been a penalty and what would have been an automatic first down for Bama. So a play that should have been running into the kicker, a botched extra point, a missed field goal, 2 fumbled punts. And Michigan still won. Michigan still won with a quarterback in J.J. McCarthy that, I'm going to be honest with y'all, I had major questions about coming into this game. I was a little bit worried. Okay, I know he can play in structure. A little bit of a Jimmy Garoppolo syndrome where I know he can play in structure. I know he can work out of the play action. I know he can be good and efficient and not turn the ball over when Blake Corum's running effectively and this Michigan running game is at its peak. But what about when the other team knows you're going to throw? What about that? Well, J.J. McCarthy, if I read the stat right, either 5 for 5 or 6 for 6 on that game-tying drive at the end of regulation, including, and this was a very well-designed play by Jim Harbaugh and by the entire Michigan offensive coaching staff, beautifully designed 4th down play to get the first down. By the way, going for it with 3 minutes to go, I think 2.5 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go, in their own territory, down 7, 4th and 2. Folks, you don't get this, game's over. And the reason I kind of emphasize that is I was saying watching the game, and I'm not Mr. Conservative when it comes to being armchair coach, but I'm like, I might consider kicking this thing to Bama and playing defense. You got 2.5 minutes to go, all 3 are timeouts. You can very easily get the ball back with another opportunity. And Jim Harbaugh's like, screw it. I've been losing all these bowl games, lost the last 2 semifinal games. I am going for it. I am being aggressive. I am trusting my quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, who made every throw he needed to in that last drive. And by and large, J.J. McCarthy, given the circumstances, we know Bama's secondary is pretty darn good. Couldn't have been much better. 17-27, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a QBR 91.9. So J.J. McCarthy played very, very well. Blake Corum ran in the touchdown in overtime, which ultimately ended up being the game-winning touchdown. And listen, I know a lot of people are talking about that last play call for Alabama, the 4th and goal, where they ran the quarterback keeper with Jalen Milroe. I get the criticism on that. There's one film angle that makes it look like it might have been a busted play because the wide receivers, I don't know if it was a decoy, but the receivers look to be in sort of like a break and slant route. The running back is coming to the left. Maybe it's like a screen. I'm not sure what's going on, but Jalen Milroe obviously bobbled the snap. It wasn't a terribly good game for Bama center, who actually I saw today transferred from Alabama. But ultimately, it was all said and done. The better team won. And by the way, in this game, obviously, we're not talking in general, but in this game, better coach won. Michigan was playing with more energy, even when they were trailing. We're playing with more energy. Seemed to me more, have a greater sense of urgency in this football game, even in overtime. They executed, and this is one I knew my dad. I'm going to give my dad a lot of props here because he was the one who made this point when we were watching this game. He said, when this game went to overtime, he said, Michigan's going to win this. Because Michigan is great in these short yardage situations, a short field. If you start at the 25-yard line in overtime, even if it goes to a third overtime and it's a 2-point conversion contest, that favors Michigan as well. And we know Bama teams in the past like to, historically at least under Nick Saban, kind of be a ground and pound team. And an argument can be made, Jim Harbaugh beat Nick Saban at what used to be his old game. So Michigan was the better team, and frankly, they've been the best team in college football all season long. The Big Ten was not that good this year. We've seen that as evidence, not just in the regular season with many of the teams struggling aside from 3, including Michigan, but in the bowl games. Ohio State lost to Missouri and scored 3 points. I get without their starting quarterback, but that's not great. Indoors, by the way, you have Penn State, who lost to Ole Miss badly, given the circumstance, badly to Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. Michigan came in against a team that knocked off Georgia and pushed them around for 60 minutes and change if you include overtime. So hats off to Jim Harbaugh, hats off to Michigan. And before I even transition to Washington and Texas, I will say this. I would, given the sourcing that I've got, I would almost bet my life savings that Jim Harbaugh is going to the NFL next year. I feel that confident because you're talking about, we understand the punishment looming from the NCAA, the advanced scouting, which is the most ridiculous scandal I think I've ever seen in my life in college football. But put that aside, Jim Harbaugh will have all the leverage in the world. He's got a $120 million plus contract to come back to Michigan. But you have the Chargers who are interested. You have the Raiders who are interested. Maybe Chicago. Now, Chicago looks like they're bringing back Eberflus, but if Jim Harbaugh, who has a history in Chicago, may want to come there, bye-bye, Matt. We're going to bring in Jim. Okay, like they're not going to hesitate, especially given that they have the number 1 pick and they're got a big decision with Justin Fields. Jim Harbaugh, I can promise you 1,000% is going to the NFL. He's not coming back to Michigan. Like what Jim Harbaugh would want more than anything, because he loves his kids, he loves this coaching staff, etc., is to go in next week on Monday night in Houston, Texas, beat Washington, hoist the national title, Seacrest out, goodbye NCAA, screw y'all, I'm going back to the NFL where all I did was go to 3 straight NFC championship games and came within a pass of winning a Super Bowl against my brother. And it's what I've said about Jim Harbaugh for years. I think if you talk about college and NFL coaches, if you combine the two, I think Jim Harbaugh is one of the 5 best football coaches in America. Honest to God, Jim Harbaugh, you combine college and NFL, he's one of the 5 best football coaches in the country. He's had success literally everywhere he's been. Kind of similar to Urban Meyer, but saw that Urban Meyer experiment worked in Jacksonville. He was fired before his first year even concluded. Jim was good at San Diego State. He was good at awful Stanford. He was good with the awful 49ers. Took over a team that was irrelevant. Made an NFC title game, made another NFC title game, made the Super Bowl, made another NFC title game, and came that close. The Richard Sherman play, remember that? The Crabtree play, nearly got to another Super Bowl there. Comes to Michigan, irrelevant program, has gotten them to multiple college football playoffs, has won multiple Big Ten title games, is on a 3-game winning streak against The Ohio State University, and is a win away from a national title. So, advanced scouting my behind. That's BS. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.